What is up, everybody? Welcome to I Know You Didn't Ask. I'm your host, Megan O'Donnell, and the rumors are true. I am married. I'm a married woman. I am no longer a virgin, guys. Things have escalated quickly in the last few weeks, and don't worry, there's going to be a lot of nonsense wedding talk, but I would not do that to my everyday listeners who care less about my wedding and care more about so much stuff that is going on, you guys. I have to say, I've been watching a lot of TV, and we're going to be getting right into it. But don't worry, there will be a little wedding episode, probably like a do's and don'ts moment, probably next week or so. So stay tuned for that. I will help you save money, but I'll also help you spend a lot more money because I have ridiculous ideas and expensive taste, evidently, but it's all worth it. Things are good in the house, in the home. I got my dog right here. I just came back from Greece. You wouldn't know because I don't have any color, but that is just my cross to bear in this life. I represent the pale girls out there. What else do we got going on? I'm so excited to be back to podcasting. I think I'm going to be, you know me, idle hands, give me more ideas. You know me. I've obviously decided to mix up the show a little bit, but we'll get there. Not this week, probably next week. But I'm so excited to get back to podcasting, so let's just get right into it. Let's be real. Podcasting is my one true love. It can't break up with me. I can only break up with it. And that's a power dynamic that I absolutely love in a relationship. Okay, we have a lot to get into, people. First and foremost, Wendy Osefo deep dive episode will be out this Friday, the 17th, and it actually is going to be out on the 17th. We love an out of left field scandal. There's nothing I love more than somebody who has let greed completely blind them. And we all know Miss Wendy has 4 degrees, so she's not a dumbass, and she let this scam get a little too far. And your girl's caught. And I can't wait to dig deeper into it. I found her thesis. Now I'm reading a thesis. I'm like, I've never read so many pages in my life. I'm also back to not reading, so we'll get to that as well. But let's just put the Wendy thing aside for Friday, so tune into that. And let's just jump right into the show. Of course, I came here today mourning the loss of Diane Keaton. She passed away at the ripe age of 79 years old. We don't know what happened, and I don't care. I don't want to have any sort of negative association with Miss Keaton and her death in my mind. RIP to Nancy Meyer and Woody Allen's muse. I don't know if you guys can tell, but I am wearing a vest as a shirt today, very Keaton-esque. I was going to throw a hat on, but I thought that was a little too on the nose. And Matt has some ties that I was going to like put a tie on, and then I was wearing this ridiculous outfit. It was giving, Katharine Hepburn, obviously Keaton, Janelle Monáe, Paula Poundstone, and it was teetering into Lisa Vanderpump. So I said, let's go vest with nothing on underneath. Very sexy, business casual. Let's not forget Diane Keaton was an incredible actress in major movies, First Wives Club, The Godfather Part 1 and 2, which Matt did watch both of them on the flight home from Greece. And at a certain point, I'm like, can we speed it up? We'll talk about slow movies very soon, don't worry. She was in The Family Stone, Father of the Bride, Annie Hall, Manhattan, Sleeper, which is a deep cut. And of course, there's always like comments like, oh, but Diane didn't hate Woody Allen for all of his creepy things that he did. Woody Allen dated Diane and her 2 sisters. Like, that guy has stigmatized the Keaton family. So she's not really going to be standing up for sweet Sue-Yi against Woody Allen. Makes sense. So, of course, she's an actress. That's how we know her. And I think why people gravitated towards her so much was just this warmth and motherly energy that she exuded. I think that was one of her superpowers. And she kind of was like the mother everybody wants, like beautiful, chic, wealthy. That's definitely like the Nancy Meyer aesthetic for her. But in reality, she was creative and she had a beautiful smile and she was willing to cry and smile and laugh. And I don't know, she just had a great energy on screen. Obviously, she was a fan favorite, so this came at a massive shock to everybody around us. So let's be real, Diane Keaton was really known for her fashion sense. I mean, she was leaning into dandyism more than many other women out there. As I mentioned, Katharine Hepburn was very much wearing menswear. Janelle Monáe consistently is wearing more masculine leaning clothing, highly tailored pieces, layers, turtlenecks, coats. Again, I was going to be wearing a bowler hat today, but I decided to pull a Coco Chanel and just remove one piece of my outfit before, getting onto the podcast, because I don't want to embarrass myself with a fucking bowler hat on. But honestly, I think one of the reasons why her style was so impressive was that it really kind of stood out in a sea of people wearing the same things. And I think now we're in this world where every influencer and every girl looks exactly the same because they've all kind of outsourced their taste to various brands who are giving them free shit. So it's like, yeah, I'd be head to toe in Gucci if they were giving me Gucci clothes for free. That's kind of how it works. And so now, like, we live in such a transactional world that even like the fashion influencers out there like don't have a genuine, authentic style. They just go shopping and put on clothes that they see someone has already styled on a mannequin. So I think that's why, Diane Keaton also had this whole second world about her. Of course, she's a celebrity, actress, whatever, but then she's also this fashionista. And for me, a fashion girly myself, I admire her originality. So RIP. But let's talk about some other ladies in fashion. Again, Netflix has me in a fucking chokehold. I can't watch anything else except for Netflix documentaries, which they are pumping out every day, it seems like. Also, I will have to say one little thing about Netflix. They keep pushing Confessions of a Shopaholic to me. Like every day I go onto Netflix and it's like coming on Thursday, coming on Thursday. It's like, are you trying to tell me something? I know. I know I'm a shopaholic. I don't need Netflix to fucking remind me. I did tell Matt we're going to watch it together and it could be like a fun, sexy thing that we could do together. Guys love that movie, right? I think he might like cut up my cards if he watches it though. Anyways, speaking of fashion, women in fashion, women in STEM, LOL, there's no STEM on this podcast at all. But Victoria Beckham came out with a new Netflix documentary creatively called Victoria Beckham. And TBH, I thought it was boring. I didn't even finish part 2 or part 3. I don't even know. Like that's not a good sign for me. And it was less about the Spice Girls and more about her fashion brand, Victoria Beckham, which, is a brand that's been around for 18 years, which is really impressive. It actually shows you the difference between how long she's been in fashion, 18 years, versus Spice Girls, which was like 3 or 4 years. So it shows you kind of where her life has been post Spice Girls. But a part of me was like wanting more Spice Girl. I don't particularly care about her fashion line, and I know it's very successful right now, and her beauty brand is really big, and those are all good things. But watching the fashion line and like seeing her like go to the office and be like, "Hey Chloe, how's the hemming going?" Like it wasn't doing it for me. And I don't know. I don't think I'm going to make it to the end. I'm sorry, Victoria Beckham. I kind of like your vibe. You're like a little uppity and like kind of rude. And she was like, "That was my defense mechanism." Yeah, okay, same. But I don't know. Like it just wasn't doing it for me. And it sucks because it's like on the heels of her husband's documentary on Netflix that like had rave reviews, and that was a little bit more captivating to watch. And I think he is just a bit more charming and personable. So as the main subject, I want to watch David Beckham, where it's watching her, it's like, okay, you're just like a beautiful woman who happened to have been a pop star. You said, fuck that. You marry this great guy. You have this fashion brand that's always been your dream. And now you're just like living your dream. Like, what's it like? I don't know. It was like not as interesting as David Beckham's entire story. And maybe that's completely sexist of me. And, it's not the first or last time I'll be sexist on this podcast. That's, not saying anything good about myself. Okay. Charlie Sheen's documentary, AKA Charlie Sheen on Netflix. I have to say up front, I don't feel an ounce of remorse for this guy. Born into Hollywood, famous parents, very successful from the jump, a rich kid who, consistently has failed upwards regardless of his poor behavior because his devilish good looks. And I don't know. I was not surprised by any of the things that we really learned about him in this documentary. Of course, it goes through like his partying days, which like he doesn't even really get into. He just like implies that he partied a lot. And I wanted to say, I need pictures or it didn't happen, Charlie. Like I want to get a little deeper into like the young, fun partying Charlie, where it wasn't as demonic and terrifying as like Tiger Blood Charlie Sheen, which even that whole arc in the documentary was like really dark to watch. And I have to say, my aunt and brother went to see Charlie Sheen perform one of his Tiger Blood shows, and I do believe my aunt got into a fight in the audience, which like tracks, but it's also like not. But that's my bloodline. Like that's where I come from. That's my stock. So again, don't know what that says about me, but you know, he talks about partying. He talks about his friendship with Nick Cage. He talks about how him and Sean Penn have been besties for the resties for their whole lives, and they've really kind of been together forever. He brings out his one black friend, Tony Todd, who they grew up together, and Tony took one direction in life, which is like no drugs and like being a decent person. And Charlie was like, psych, look how hot my face is. Like, I'm gonna just like party and not give a fuck about anything in my life, whether it's my health, whether it's my career, whether it's my children, whether it's my wives. I don't care. I'm gonna beat people, I'm gonna drunk drive, I'm gonna hurt people, overspend, like it doesn't even matter. But he's like, every time I got into my worst moments, I just reach out to Tony Todd, and Tony Todd fixes everything. And I don't know, he had like no fucking remorse. The whole thing was a bit self-aggrandizing, and I do want to read his audiobook. Ooh, dark. I want to listen to his audiobook. I'm not picking that book up from the fucking library. Yeah, right. As I mentioned up front, my reading situation is bleak. I got 11 pages into my book on my honeymoon. That is so dark. And it has nothing to do with the book. It has everything to do with my lack of attention span. I'm quickly getting to a place of stupidity that I don't know if I can ever really turn back. So I'm going to start reading the moment I'm finished editing this episode because I have to remember how to do it. We have Denise Richards making a little cameo, as well as their daughter Lola. Sammy didn't make a cameo in this documentary, but who cares about her? And, you know, they talk about their experience with Charlie and whatnot. And, you know, Denise is, again, like very open, very real. And part of me was like, is Denise and Charlie going to get back together? That would be fucking iconic. And we also see his other ex-wife, Brooke Mueller. Yikes. I've like not followed anything with Brooke Mueller in the past. Of course, I've seen her name, but I've never really seen her work or like, does she work? Like, I have no idea who she is. Is she a model? Who knows? But it seems like she was in a tricky place still. Like, it seemed like she currently was going through some of the things that Charlie had been through in the past, if you catch my drift. So that was a little dark to see kind of play out on screen. We, of course, talk about his HIV status and how, I guess, some of his past girlfriends attempted to extort him, and that is why he ended up coming out and saying, I'm HIV positive, which, you know, which is very impressive in the society that we live in today with so much stigma around HIV. I mean, there's a lot going on in this documentary, but there was a moment where he openly admitted to having gay sex, and it's so funny because, like, he's like, I was tying fucking ropes around my arms and hitting myself up with heroin, and I didn't care. And then, like, when he's talking about, like, his gay relationship, he uses, like, this metaphor of a menu where he's like, the first side of the menu is, you know, what people expect I want. Tits and 69. Ew, like, have I ever had sex before? Oh, wait, I'm literally just newly not a virgin, so I'm still learning it. he's equating gay sexual acts with items on a menu that he's like choosing. He's like, and today I will get a rim job, and tomorrow I will. Again, I'm like, what's another gay thing? Be a bottom. I don't know gay sex terms, but I'm learning. And if Charlie just like gave it like 3 or 4 more minutes in the episode, we could have probably gotten there. But there was a moment where, you know, he's talking about his, you know, gay lifestyle, whatever. And the producer's like, whoa, I gotta chime in. Like, that was the only time the producer actually like made a comment. And again, like, this had been like, I don't know, an hour and a half of other footage where he's talking about like, yeah, then I couldn't drive my kid to school because I was too drunk. Yeah, then I missed out this job. Yeah, then I showed up 2 hours late to work. Yeah, I fucked over my wife. Yeah, I just beat her up. I just gave her a headlock. We were having fun. And the producer like is saying nothing, and then like the second like the gay sex stuff comes up, the producer's like, excuse me, I must interrupt because I have questions. It's fucking embarrassing. The world we live in now, it's like, well, we're gonna get into it in the next section, actually. I'll lean into my hatred of homophobia in the next segment, don't you worry. And then my last favorite part of Charlie Sheen's doc is Heidi Fleiss, who is like the high-end escort who basically like had to go to prison because of fucking Charlie Sheen and his absolute carelessness with her prostitutes. Like, come on, we're all trying to have fun here. Like, why are you being really reckless and like writing fucking checks for these prostitutes? Like, you might be able to trace back to that, you fucking idiot. She does quote call him a crybaby pussy bitch, and that's a phrase that I'm gonna be recycling. So watch this space. You will be hearing that phrase come out of my mouth. And also, don't worry, because this actually reminded me about why I love Heidi Fleiss so much and her entire story. So I'm gonna actually do a deep dive episode on Heidi Fleiss, because what else am I going to do? What else do I have going on? Anyway, I actually have to get a job, but that's besides the point. All right, let's move on to a little bit of content coming from HBO. So I had been teasing that I wanted to watch Pee Wee as himself, which is the Pee Wee Herman documentary, where Paul Reubens, who's the man behind Pee Wee Herman, opened up about his experience growing up as a young artist, going to college, post-college life, being in the Groundlings, making up Pee-wee as a character, and then, subsequently creating the movie, the play, the kids show, and everything that kind of came in between. And TBH, Paul Reubens, like, was kind of hot. Like, he had like some moments where like he was looking like a brooding hot artist, and I was very into it. From a young age, he knew he was going to be a performer. He didn't really know exactly how that was going to look at the time. And once he eventually graduated college and was doing more performance art, he got into the Groundlings, which is a big comedy school out in Los Angeles. And from there, he ended up meeting all these friends who eventually became famous in their own right. And they created plays together. Together, they created like Pee Wee Herman and the Pee Wee Herman Playhouse, which itself was just such an impressive feat and so creative and different, and I think out of the box, that it really took off very quickly. I mean, we see moments where Pee Wee Herman's like doing a holiday special and he's with Oprah and Cher and a million other uber famous people, and it's incredible to see the reaction that these other celebrities gave to him when, in theory, he's like and a man dressed up like a little boy, acting like a little boy, but he's silly and mischievous, and like kind of sexual undertones are happening throughout. But it was just like a really interesting character, and honestly, like something that we haven't really seen since Pee Wee himself. And so Paul Reubens, the man behind Pee Wee, had like a very colorful past. He was clearly a gay man, but he felt so scared to be gay in society because he knew he would lose out on job opportunities, which is very much a reality, especially in Hollywood. When you want to kind of move into more serious film and television, a lot of people wouldn't consider casting a gay man as a straight man, because it's not believable or whatever the case may be. So he always tried to kind of conceal his sexuality, which ended up creating a lot of internalized homophobia towards himself and self-hatred. And we see that kind of play out through the whole entire documentary, where they are actually interviewing Paul himself. At the time of the interview, he ended up getting through about 40 hours of interviewing with the director. But throughout that duration of those 40 hours, spread through time, he was battling cancer, and the director didn't know, and not many people in his life really knew. And so he did abruptly pass away while they were interviewing him. But you see his trepidation about talking about his personal life and the struggles that he's been in. And, he kind of always kind of harkens it back to this desire for control, whether it was creative control or control of the narrative of his life and who he's with and what he's doing. And even with this documentary, he many times was kind of like gaslighting the director a little bit and giving very vague answers to what should be a simple question, because he didn't know how the director was then going to position his answer within the documentary. And I think that's one of the problems that a lot of people have when they are included in documentaries about themselves, because they then say, well, I want to write my own documentary to tell the world how I saw my life. And the way you see your own life might be actually different than how the world is seeing it. And they had lots of different people coming in who were his friends and colleagues and whatnot, who could shed light onto who he is a little bit more. And there was even a moment where Paul is talking to the director, and the director is basically like, hey guy, like, where Paul's basically saying, hey, can you please like let me interview some of the people, or at least throw some questions to them and ask them. The director's like, it's not really how it works. So it's one thing if you share some stories for the director to then tee up for him to discuss, but it's another thing when he's like, oh, actually, can I administer the questions? Like, no, bro, you absolutely cannot. They go throughout the entire situation with him in the adult movie theater. So I guess Paul Reubens ended up going to an adult movie theater and was rubbing one out. They said, quote, he was manipulating his genitalia. That seems a little scientific for me, but yeah, he was caught manipulating his genitalia, and like the guy was in a dirty movie theater. Like, isn't that kind of the point, to like rub one out? It's not like there are kids around. So that ended up being a big story. Obviously, he felt a lot of shame. He already was struggling with his sexuality and publicly discussing what was going on with his sexuality. So this kind of was like the impetus to have people start questioning what the hell is going on with Pee Wee and Paul Reubens. And, we can't forget that like there was such a queer phobia during the 90s and 2000s that really also made him even more unwilling to divulge what he does and what he enjoys on in his spare time. The problem was, after that, I guess he ended up getting into this kerfuffle with another guy who ended up getting in trouble for, I guess, having lewd photos or child porn or something disgusting. And so then the police ended up getting a warrant to search Paul Reubens' home, where Paul was a collector. And so he collected everything from little figurines, but he also collected lots of papers and magazines from, more gay publications. So the images were very, suggestive, mainly with male bodies. And so he had tens of thousands of images collected, and none of them were lewd. None of them involved children, thank God. And I guess they ended up taking one specific image that they particularly thought was lewd, and they ended up arresting him for having indecent items within his home. And it's fucking disgusting. First and foremost, whatever people enjoy is what they enjoy, as long as it's not hurting anybody. And that was Paul's whole thing. He's like, well, who the fuck cares if I have pictures of naked dudes in my house? They're all consenting dudes, you think. And, it's the same thing as having a magazine full of naked women. What the fuck's the difference? It's just a guy. But again, that like homophobia that was like running rampant in our society was telling the cops that like this is indecent. So at that point, there was a lot of rhetoric around what was going on with Paul, and it kind of was leading into this like child pornography situation, which like of course is not good, considering he worked with children on a children's show for like 5 or 6 seasons. So it's kind of like, guy, you can't really be associated with pedophilia and work with children. Again, he wasn't a pedophile, and that was like one of the biggest issues he had, where he's like, once you're labeled that, after a bit of time, he was able to like get back into acting and do roles that weren't Pee-wee related. He also talks about how he was like really insecure about his film with Tim Burton, because after the film, Tim got all of the accolades for the movie, whereas Paul, aka Pee-wee, whatever, really was just seen as an actor. He wasn't seen as a creative partner, seen as a, supervising producer on the entire project. And so he was jelly about that. And it was also really cool to see a young Tim Burton. I didn't realize that Pee-wee's first movie was actually Tim Burton's first film, which is really incredible because, he's a master when it comes to sets and creativity and really like kind of thinking out of the box. So they kind of are perfect with one another. But let's be real, so much of Pee-wee's life was plagued by homophobia and this deep hatred of what God made him. And like, we cannot forget that like this is still very much in the cultural conversation. People are trying to strip people and libraries and whatever of their agency to even just show and have LGBTQ people reflected in their books. Like, who cares? Like, people are gonna be gay. People are gonna be trans. Why spend your whole fucking life trying to hate them? Like, it's kind of bizarre to me. Like, you got nothing better to do? You're just gonna pick on this gay kid? You don't think it's hard enough for him? You don't think society and his parents and his grandparents have already like not reminded him 1,000 different times about how they could possibly not want a gay child? Like, it's so disgusting, and it's so harmful. And I think these types of documentaries where they show the struggle that somebody has gone through, and has like clearly like kind of died with these struggles too. Like this doesn't go away. Like it just kind of manifests into self-hatred or, self-harm. And so, you know what? Be a fucking ally, motherfuckers. Wake up. Don't be a fucking idiot. Like people are gonna be gay, straight, whatever, queer, trans, with or without you. So just get on board and stop wasting your life being negative. Okay, moving on to something a little bit lighter. The 10.5 hour plane ride that I took from Greece back to New York was some of the best 10 hours of my life. After like a 10-day trip, you're so tired and your legs hurt from walking so much, and you just like want to sit. Like I just was so happy to sit. And I ended up watching The Studio on Apple Plus, which is a Hollywood satire that follows Seth Rogen as the lead. Seth Rogen and his writing buddy Evan Goldberg also wrote and produced the show and directed a bunch of episodes. But they basically are working at this big studio called Continental Studios where they're making films. And the first episode, Seth Rogen's character immediately gets promoted to the head of content, and boom, the show starts. And it pretty much just like goes through all of like the inner workings of getting these films greenlit for the year and all the things that go into a film. It's not just a great director, it's not just a great script, it's marketing, it's this, it's all the things that kind of come together. And it's a star-studded cast. Ike Barinholtz is incredible. He is so funny. Chase Sui Wonders, she plays Quinn. She's like the younger creative girl kind of working with Ike. Catherine Hahn is absolute perfection as the head of marketing. I know a girl who is exactly like her. It like gives me chills when I see them. It's not a compliment to the girl I know, but she sucks. But anyways, then Catherine O'Hara, obviously like the Queen Catherine O'Hara comes in, and she's like the former executive, and Seth Rogen's character actually took her job. So a little bit of tension there, but she's kind of back as a more of a supervising producer on some of the projects that they're working on. The wardrobe is on point. The writing is on point. No surprise, because it's written by, Evan Goldberg and Seth Rogen, who created, Superbad and so many of the best films that we, consider some of the best comedies that are out there, even to this day, even though they honestly came out like 15 years ago. But The Studio is truly so funny. There were moments where I was laughing out loud, and I haven't really felt that way with a comedy in a very long time. And honestly, it's one of those shows where it's like, if it's good, it's so good. But if it's bad, it could be a little cheesy. But there wasn't that many moments that like were like so cringy that I was like, oh God, this is annoying. But, there's some plot points that like are a little eye roll, but that's kind of how every show is at this point. One of the reasons why there's so many things I liked about the show, of course, as I mentioned, the writing was really impressive, but the wardrobe is beyond. All of them look incredible. It's modern, it's fun, but it's also kind of like harkening back to a kind of golden age of Hollywood in the 70s and 80s. They're also filming at this old historic building in Los Angeles that Frank Lloyd Wright actually was the architect for. So you see a lot of that like mid-century look throughout the offices where they're filming all the time. And then, above all else, the show itself is so beautifully shot, and it's like very highly choreographed in the sense that you're clearly seeing that it's like a delicate dance. It kind of feels like you're watching a play, the way that they're interacting with one another. And honestly, a lot of the scenes, especially like the big, triumphant moments, are actually single takes, which is incredibly hard to choreograph and incredibly hard to execute. And they just do it truly flawlessly. And I was just shocked at how much I really enjoyed this show. So I definitely give this one a 10 out of 10. The Studio on Apple Plus. Season 2 is going to start filming in December, so I'm just going to be waiting with bated breath. Very excited for that. And I think, like, again, the world that we're living in is changing. The movie industry is changing. Everything's always changing so rapidly, especially at this time. And so they discuss, like, the realities of these major studios being bought out by Amazon and Netflix. That's obviously a big point of contention towards the end of the season. Not a spoiler. And it also kind of talks about, like, how, as creators and as the head of this big studio, you want to preserve some kind of artistic integrity, but then also, you have to deal with like kind of like the embarrassing realities of like working in a big corporation where like, they had this great opportunity to work with Martin Scorsese, but then, they ultimately need to like work on a project for the Kool-Aid movie, Kool-Aid Man, like breaking through a wall, Kool-Aid Man. So it kind of just highlights the demands of these companies that like, yes, they want to make amazing movies, but sometimes you got to pay the bill. And if Kool-Aid is paying the bill, then we're taking your money, Kool-Aid. Thank you. Okay, speaking of something that like was so embarrassingly bad, I saw Leonardo DiCaprio and Paul Thomas Anderson's new film One Battle After Another this past Friday. I fell asleep about 42 minutes into the film. Have to say, 3 hours of nothingness. I woke up and I still couldn't care less, and I thought it was just so fucking boring, which is interesting because it's done so well on Rotten Tomatoes, which like, did I not see the same movie everybody else watched? So basically, it's like these revolutionaries led by Tiana Taylor and Leonardo DiCaprio, and they release illegals from ICE, and then they move on to like robbing banks and like murdering. So it's like, so are you doing good? Are you doing bad? Like you're murdering a bank teller. The guy didn't do anything wrong. He's just trying to provide for his family. And then like while they're doing these crimes, revolutionary crimes, they're like yelling their gang name. So obviously, like one of them gets caught and then turns into a rat, and then there's like Sean Penn with Tiana Taylor. And TBH, I feel like they like kind of over sexualized Tiana Taylor's character. Like she was like one of the revolutionaries and immediately like gets knocked up by Leo. Then there's like this Sean Penn connection where they're having like a very, very sexual relationship. And like I felt like I felt icky watching it. Like I felt like they weren't giving this woman any depth outside of just being like promiscuous and violent, and also like lacking family values. There's like a whole situation where Tiana Taylor's character like screws over her kid, whatever, and it was just weird. I don't know. Maybe I didn't watch the middle of it, so like I missed like all the good parts, but I don't know. I'm just gonna tell you guys, like, don't waste your time. Like, don't waste your time. See something else. I will be seeing Roofman with Channing Tatum. I talked about it on this show a couple weeks ago, and I'm dying to see that. It's actually out. It came out last week. Kirsten Dunst is in it. It's out in theaters. 2 hours, people. Cap it at 2. 2 hours for a drama, crime, comedy. That's perfect. That's what I need in my life. Not some fucking revolutionaries releasing illegal immigrants. Like, what? Like, we see this shit on the news. Like, it's like I don't need to, get too real with some of the content I'm watching. And I honestly thought Leonardo DiCaprio had a really boring performance. Sorry. I said it. Okay, let's move into some reality TV because that's, the bread and butter here. Southern Charm season 11 is back November 19th at 9 p.m. Eastern, and I'm setting my clock. I'm setting everything for that day because the season 11 trailer came out. Chef's kiss. I think I'm actually going to do a trailer recap for that because it was like 2 minutes long, and I feel like I could talk about it for, I don't know, a solid 52. So we'll be getting to that another time. But I wanted to talk about some of Whitney Sudler-Smith's new projects. Of course, Patricia Altschul has been posting about it because Mommy is his biggest fan. And we have to talk about some of the new projects he has in development. Some of these are shocking. And again, these are in development. Let's see if they actually get made. And knowing Whitney's track record, they're not going to get made. And let's not forget, Whitney is also the producer, creator of Southern Charm. But Southern Charm is a reality show that was lightning in a bottle. Wouldn't have been the same if it wasn't for Catherine and Dennis. Sorry, not sorry. Oh, by the way, she's in prison. Yikes. We're not going to get into that today because we're trying to keep things light and tight and fun. We're not really going to go into prison sentences yet. Maybe I'll go... Well, I was going to say, maybe I'll just do that with Wendy's episode on Friday, but no, I'm not going to be dragging Catherine into that. But let's get into some of Whitney's new projects on the horizon. He's a new feature film called New Rose. The logline, American Psycho meets Love Island. Those are two of my favorite things coming together, so I'm listening. Again, Whitney has no marketing materials, none of this is done. He probably just called a person at Deadline and was like, hey, can you just write a nice article about me, because my reality show that's gone 11 seasons, it's deeply successful, and the only thing I've ever done that's successful is coming out, and so I need to do some press for that. But I also want the world to know that I'm also a very big guy in production. I could do a lot with my skill sets and my creativity and family money. Okay, so New Rose. A man gets humiliated on national television and then eventually pivots to join the Ukrainian army when he becomes a drone operator, killing killing hundreds of enemy targets. He is then brought back into American society where he gets a thirst for killing. And then some reality TV producers come calling and they want him to come back to an all-star reality show on a remote island, and you can assume what happens after that. What the fuck? Like, I like the like man getting humiliated on television thing. Clever. I think that happens constantly in society. Like, you have your 15 minutes of random fame where you're like, someone was just filming me in the airport doing, like, tying my shoes in a funny way, and now like, I'm all over the internet and I'm viral. So I guess it's like a random kind of viral dude. The pivoting and joining the Ukrainian army is something I did not expect would be in Whitney's oeuvre. But again, there's so much we don't know about him, so maybe he's able to write about that? Question mark. Again, I can't imagine he's writing this. And then, the drone operator kills hundreds of enemy targets, and then he comes back to American society with a thirst for killing. I feel like, again, those are not really the stories we need to be highlighting these days, because so many people do have the thirst to kill and are consistently doing it, and doing it in schools. Again, we're not really going to get political here, but I really don't think we need to be enabling more people to kill. But yeah, then the killer gets approached by reality producers and they want him to come to an all-star reality show on a remote island. And it says you can assume what happens after that. I don't want to assume anything. I don't want to make an ass out of you or me, because I really don't know what happens, especially the fact that it said American Psycho meets Love Island. I feel like he's going to be murdering women on this island. Let's be fucking real. Let's be real. So that's something I'm very much interested in. Whitney also has a comedy series called Family Office coming out, which is really rich coming from him because his family is kind of non-existent and he clearly has no family values. And then Office, like, he's never worked in an office. He's never had a job. So what do you know about family offices, or, to be quite honest with you, the Ukrainian army? You do know something about being humiliated on national television. So there is some truth in that other feature film you're working on. But Family Office is very interesting. It says, quote, "It takes the piss out of young London society with the intrigue of a Bourne Identity." Haven't seen the Bourne Identity, but I'm intrigued. I'm interested in this. He does continue to call it Gossip Girl and ketamine, which now that is something I'm really interested in seeing and watching and enjoying. So Family Office, I'm also very excited for this. Again, we have to just wait and see. The Deadline article did say these will be filming sometime in the fall, but let's be real. Neither of these things will ever exist in the real world, right? And then third, digital series. We're stepping down. First we started a feature, and then we went to TV, and now we're just digital series. Digital series has a little bit more of a grasp on reality, if you're asking me, in terms of what he's going to be able to do, The digital series will follow Southern Charm cast member Shep Rose, and it will be an adventure show, which he describes as a combination of Anthony Bourdain's No Reservations meets The Trip. TBH, I would love to see like a Whitney Sudler-Smith and Shep Rose go on like a sideways trip. Like, I want them to go to wine country. I want them to go to wine country. I want them to drink Merlot. I want them to eat cheese boards. I want them to, be smelling the wine, tasting the terroir, come through the grapes, all of the things that I'm actually interested in. I would like to see the two of them do this. I don't know why. But yeah, so this is going to be an adventure show. I do think Shep is magnetic on screen, unfortunately. But again, I don't know if we need a digital series of him doing this, because I feel like every season we see him with like a new rich person hobby. He's like, fly fishing, I've been doing that since I've been a baby. Oh, cross-country skiing? I was cross-country skiing at 5 years old with the Princess of Norway. Like, he's always like doing really fabulous things. So I feel like we don't need like more of Shep's hobbies being shown to us. But evidently, Whitney is thinking that this could be a huge get. And again, the comparison to Anthony Bourdain is just offensive, and that will never be the case. He cannot be replicated. R.I.P. to that king. Maybe next episode I'll dress up like him, and I'll give a mournful soliloquy about how much I do love Anthony Bourdain, which, speaking of, I should read his book again. That's a good book to get me into reading again. Books about drug abuse, family issues, personal issues, career issues. Now that's what gets me reading. That's what gets me going. We also have to talk quickly about Craig Conover, who is nowhere to be seen in the blockbuster films, television show, or the new digital series that Whitney's working on, but he's all over the season 11 Southern Charm trailer. The biddies want fucking Craig. He's hot and rich, so I get it, but he's like an idiot, you know? Like, he's kind of like, ugh. Like, I once dated this guy in my past life, and like every time like we'd be talking, like we'd be hanging out for like 2 hours, and like at the 2 hour mark he'd be like, talking about aliens. I'm like, stop. Like, why are you talking about aliens? Like, we're just trying to hang out. Like, stop talking about aliens. Like, and I feel like that's like Greg. It's like, ugh, stop talking about your tinfoil hat ideas, like your dumb conspiracies. He's like, 9/11 was an inside job, steel beams. It's like, shut up. But like, can you talk about anything else? Like, fuck off. I get that vibe from Craig, but he is also starting a production company, which I don't think is impressive. Starting a production company is not hard. You just get an LLC. But like, again, to produce things, let's see if that actually happens. But like, let us not forget that Mary-Kate and Ashley started Dual Star Productions when they were 7 years old. So Craig is not impressive when he decides he's going to come out with a production company. Let's see some of the content that you're actually producing, and maybe Craig can actually kind of have like a full circle moment where he starts producing content for Whitney, when Whitney was the one who gave Craig his opportunity to be on television in the first place. So I do think this could be a very full circle situation. So excited to see what comes out of these guys. Again, if we're talking about failing upward, these guys on this show have very much done that. And I'm impressed and I'm jealous. You guys, this has been like a really hard week for me. I know I'm married. I lost 2 pounds on my honeymoon, so I'm married and I'm thin. I did gain the weight back, but at one point I was 8 pounds away from my goal weight. So again, back to 10 pounds away, but it's a numbers game, right? Like, we're just working every day to get better. But this past week I had heard devastating news that freckleless Ariana Biermann and Hudson are no longer together. And if you knew my love for Next Gen NYC, you knew within that love for the show, the program itself, came my love for Hudson and Ariana. Hudson was her only way out of being Kim Zolciak's daughter. And he was a chicken heir. We all know he's the heir to Zaxby's fortune. I've never been to Zaxby's, but dying to go. And when I tell you dying to go, I'm not fucking kidding. I think I found the closest location was like a few hours away. So I'm not going to be able to make it for a while, but I will be going to a Zaxby's and I will be putting more money into Hudson's future trust fund. But they have decided to break up, which is absolutely devastating. She posted on Instagram, Hudson and I have decided to go our separate ways. Well, these things are never easy. We both know what's best for us right now. We are so grateful for all the love and support you've shown us over the years. Sometimes life takes you in different directions, and that's okay, heart. Love you all. You know, she's not wrong. Sometimes life does take you in different directions, but I really thought that their love was everlasting, and seeing, you know, them break up rocks me to my core. It rocks the foundation of my relationship. And not to say that I'm a gold digger, but I do think I'm going to slide into Hudson's DMs. I'm just going to say, hey, you into married girls? Just to see how he's doing. I'm just going to lob that into the DMs and see where we go from there. I have one very, very, very gorgeous friend who is newly single, and I'm thinking she can date Hudson. All of a sudden, you know how people are like, oh, you'll know I've won the lottery when? I'm going to know she's dating Hudson when she's dripping in diamonds. Like tennis necklaces that are like 4 rows of diamonds deep. Like I have one, okay, I have got a couple diamonds on me, but I want to be draped in more diamonds. And again, if I don't date Hudson, then my friend is gonna. And if she dates Hudson, then I feel like he's also going to treat me like a queen as well. Like he's also going to buy me things, right? And he also just like supported Ariana's dreams for the fashion line. Adored Angels didn't end up going anywhere, and back on August 12th, another fateful day for Ariana. She's been having a rough fall. Thank God she's like hot and wealthy, because what she'd have the worst fall ever if she wasn't those two things. But she talked about how Adored Angels isn't going anywhere, and this is actually a quote that I really enjoyed, because I like when people just give up. They said, crunch the numbers, did a little research, not working, cut bait, don't waste any time or money on this moving forward. It's literally just a time and money suck. She said, unfortunately, I just don't think I'm as talented as I thought. This is literally like what I should be telling myself about this fucking podcast. Like, in all actuality, I think I had this different idea of what I wanted to do, and I just don't think I could produce the best thing. So I just want to be like honest, and I'm not gonna put something out there. And if I'm going to put something out there, I want it to be the best ever. And right now, it's not looking too hot. I love her being completely self aware. She said, Adored Angels is trashy, and the work sucks. And I don't like it, and I don't want to do it. She probably got like a few samples back, and she was like, this shit is so gross. Unless I'm like producing at a really high price point, I can't make something that I like, which again is honorable. I'd rather someone be aware of the realities of a business and like that this is really going to go nowhere, and just end it. Thankfully, again, the business wasn't built, so her and Hudson don't have to, deal with that and the breakup. But what's going to happen with the big dogs? What's going to happen with the $10,000 a month apartment? Like, there's a lot going on there, and I do think we need to, give her grace. Give her grace, because she needs it during these trying times. As I mentioned up front, she doesn't have freckles anymore, because her mom got her a laser surgery when she was young, to remove her freckles. And that is so fucked up. Kim Zolciak is such a terrible mother. And I've always said it. I will say, Ariana has defied all odds when it comes to like being a well-adjusted child of a reality star. Kim is so selfish and gross. And to remove your daughter's beautiful freckles when she's a child without her knowing that that's actually what's happening is abusive. And also, it tells your child that you're not beautiful the way you are. You're not perfect the way you are. And that is so damaging and so sick. And, I live for Ariana. When I say I live for her, I live for her. I ride or die for her. And I just don't like that Kim is such a pig. She truly is a fucking pig. And she probably hates that they broke up, because, who's going to sell her money so she can continue buying the overpriced bottles of shitty American wine that she drinks. Anyways, let's end the show today with a bit of Love is Blind Season 9 recap. You guys, I know new episodes come out today, so we'll talk about those episodes next week, but the day after I got back from my honeymoon, Matt was off, I was off, I don't work. I'm perpetually off. For the time being, I'm getting a job, people. Maybe. Part-time. but season 9 of Love is Blind came out. I had to watch at an aggressive speed to catch up. Like, I think I put in like 8 to 9 episodes in one day. Like, it was not good, but I am really scared for the people they chose this year. It seems like they put out a casting notice for like the most unhinged, emotionally unintelligent people they could possibly have found. And I feel like the people on this show are like a perfect example of how COVID like really negatively affected communication skills for adults and children as well. Like, these people were distant. They like had so many misunderstandings. They were not empathetic. They were ghosting. They were leaving. Like, there were so many things that I felt like on this season we haven't really addressed in past seasons. And I don't know, but there was a lack of love. Like, nobody's into each other, right? Like, either you're gay or you're abusive on this show. Just kidding. It feels like none of these people have a genuine connection at all. And we'll kind of get into it a little bit more, but first we have to start with Sparkle Megan. As another girl whose name is Megan, I've never had to be called Sparkle Megan because my sparkle just shines. Sorry. Like, I don't need to tell the world, like, by the way, I'm sparkly. Like, you're not sparkly when you have to tell people, call me Sparkle Megan. And also, I don't think it's because of her sparkling personality. It seems like she just like wears shoes with rhinestones. Like every time I saw her, she was like in a sneaker with like a bunch of rhinestones, or like wearing her hair like half up, half down. I'm like, Megan, you are dressed like a 4-year-old going to picture day. What's happening here? But she's rich and successful, mazel tov. What's it like? She meets this young guy, Jordan, who has a kid. You know, the kid is like his whole central plot point. He's a couple years younger than her, and his kid is 5 years old and has type 1 diabetes. And I guess Megan's dad died from type 1 diabetes. And Megan's like, when I heard about your diabetic son, it reminded me of my dad. It's like, relax. Like, this is not your dad saying hi from heaven. Like, oh, wow, he has a diabetic son. Finally, this is the sign that my dad is looking out for me. Like, no, like diabetes is like very serious, and type 1 diabetes is very serious, especially for children who like don't know how to like, you know, do shit and like monitor things. So it's like very difficult for the parents. And kind of seems like she was like obsessed with the diabetes thing. And she like tells the mom and sister like when they're first meeting Jordan at lunch, she's like, and you guys, guess what? His son is diabetic, and they all were like, what? Like getting like so emotional, like it's not diabetes, dad is watching from heaven. Like, okay, what's happening here? Like, let's not make your son's medical issues a plot point for this woman to like reconnect with her dead father. Like, it made me feel uncomfortable. I don't know if they're gonna make it, but honestly, the two of them have the best relationship out of all of them, which is shocking. I do need to quickly discuss the situation with the smoothie. So Jordan, very buff, tattoos, handsome-ish, handsome adjacent, and he wanted to make a protein smoothie, and so he takes a frozen chicken breast out of the freezer, obviously, and then he takes a packet of Crystal Light, and he puts that with the chicken and some water in a blender, and then he closes it and he blends it and he drinks it. I know protein's like the it thing lately, but like there are so many delicious ways of getting protein in your diet. Crystal Light, a chicken breast, and Megan's looking at him like, "What are you doing?" She's like, "Just eat 6 eggs." Like, what's happening here? And this actually reminded me of Rob Kardashian once like putting salmon in a smoothie years ago. Like I think when you're putting um entrees into a smoothie, like when you don't have like issues with like chewing or swallowing or whatever, like when like you literally need to like eat that stuff through a straw, like there's no reason. It's not a good sign for Megan. Like seeing that, it would have been a huge red flag. And one time I went on a date with a guy and he once told me that he enjoys smoothies. And I said, "Oh, I do too. Well, I love that. Look, us having things in common." And then he proceeded to tell me that the smoothie that he drank was water, orange juice, and frozen spinach. I just want to like wonder, like, where are guys? Where are men's brains? Like, can you not Google fruit smoothie, high protein fruit smoothie? That guy, you know, who's putting the fucking orange juice in it. Oh my god! Like, there's literally like no protein in that. Spinach has some protein, but not enough. Like, it was bizarre. I don't know what's happening with men these days, but it's not surprising that they're all becoming fucking incel freaks because, you know, they have no fucking ability to like Google a protein shake that's delicious and doesn't include a chicken breast. Like I couldn't move past that. And I don't know if Megan's going to be able to as well. And also when he did take a sip, there was meat smoothie on his mustache. Taking a moment of silence for that because I'm just disgusted. Like, I'm disgusted. We'll see if they last. I think they'll actually go to the altar. She's a rich girl. He, you know, is clearly like trying to make it work, single dad, whatever. And he's 27. He's young, so he's doesn't have a pot to piss in. And she's like, "I love this $2 million 6-bedroom house. It's perfect for us." He's like, what? He's like, "I have $27 in the bank right now." We have Allie and Anton. They're not gonna make it. Once he was coming home after a night shift and was drinking mimosas, and she's like, "Oh, this is cool." It's not going to work. Him going to strip clubs is also a little bit odd. Like, I get it if you're there for a bachelor party, like, see some tits, have some fun, but, like, on a Friday night with your buddy. Like, I just kind of think that's a little sad. Like, go to a bar and just like meet actual women. Like, you don't have to like go to an establishment to see titties on display. Like, it's kind of sad. Edmund and Calabria, I don't know, another one that's not going to work. Why do I feel like he's going to say yes and she's going to say no at the altar? So the episodes that come out today on the 15th are the 3 before the wedding. So next week's episodes will be the wedding. I think she'll probably, say no. He'll say yes. And, when he's like crying to her, being like, I'm just so fucking nice. That's why everybody takes advantage of me. Shut the fuck up. You keep saying, I'm so fucking nice. I'm so fucking nice. Doth protest too much. You're not fucking nice. And, he went through foster care. So that's a lot of his arc. And, when you're a child of foster care, you are hoping that if you are nice and if you're good, then your mom will want you back or your new foster parents will want to adopt you. And like being so nice and being so fake, it is like very much like what he is showing to Calabria. And I don't know, like he gives me weird vibes, but so does she. And honestly, like the hair pick that he's rocking, no. Like when he ran up to her and like had his little knee high kicks, basically like running up to her where he forgot the ring or whatever, she was looking at him like, I do not like you. Like, how the fuck did I get paired up with you? Like, this is not going to work. So they are not going to work. And also one other thing, when Calabria was meeting the mom, and the mom was like, okay, one, like the mom who, there and not there throughout his whole childhood, put this kid in fucking foster care, and now she's coming out like, you need to respect me. Fuck off. Like, bitch, get the fuck out of here. She was talking to Calabria about like, oh, all my other daughter-in-laws, like I tell them things and then they go run and tell their husbands. It's like, yeah, because you're like probably saying like weird, inappropriate things to your daughter-in-law and you don't want her to go tell her husband. That's not how this fucking works, honey. No, if my mother-in-law is acting a fool, I tell my man, because it's like, I tell him everything first and foremost, but two, it's like, that's your mom. You deal with it. Where, she wants to talk shit to Calabria and for her to just take it and, never tell Edmund, yeah, fucking right. No. We have Nick and Annie. There's nothing like an anti-gay gay guy. We love internalized homophobia on today's episode, but yeah, he like wants Christian values. He's like, but it's so weird. Like my parents always thought I was gay, and then my mom brought me into the room and was like, Nick, are you gay? And then I was like, no, I'm not gay. And then a week later, I brought a girl over and I kissed him in front of my mom and said, told ya, I'm not gay. Like nothing is gayer than that fucking whole story. That is so gay. You're gay. So I fucking hated that. Annie's, yikes. You know what? She has issues that I don't think I can really dig into. And again, another like Christian values. We, want to get married, have a baby, wife and family, Christian. He's going to use that little mountain house for his little mountain men, his Brokeback Mountain moments. Let's be real. But also, Annie has some of the worst hair I've ever seen on a person on television, and especially bad given the fact that she owns hair salons. I'm not a hair girl. It's not my thing, but not comfortable with her hair or her work, and I might have to go through her Yelp reviews on the next episode. Stay tuned. We have Joe and that girl. That's what I put into my notes. Joe and that girl, Madison. There's like really nothing to talk about with them. They're not happy. He's like, I don't like big girls. She's like not big at all. It's so sad and so mean. He's like too drunk, and she's like taking everything like a little bit too seriously. She like wakes him out of a dead drunk stupor, and he's like, wait, what? And she's like, why are you not understanding what I'm saying? He's like, you literally just woke me up. I've had 82 drinks today. I left the party early. That's how fucked up I was. And you think like waking me up out of a dead sleep is not gonna like trigger anything? And then the girl's like outside, she's crying and like really loud, and he's like, okay, like I can hear you crying, like what's going on? And like rather than like going and consoling her, he's like, come over here, like I don't know, if you want to talk, come over here. She's like, no, come over here. They're not gonna work. It's just bad. There's nothing good that's gonna happen there. And then let's quickly just touch on Patrick and Anna and Kelsey. Okay, Patrick with Anna. What was good there? Like, what was Anna's issue? She like professed her love to him, and I guess like he didn't give her like, oh yes, we're gonna be together forever. Like he didn't give her that immediately. So I'm wondering if that then kind of made her think about her whole situation with him a little bit more, and was like, oh, I've exposed myself too much. I've exposed my desires too much. I want to pull away and run away, which kind of seemed like that was the case. But whatever. She ghosts. Bye. Deuces. And then he starts dating Kelsey, who's like, the worst spray tan blonde bimbo girl you can find online, and another girl with like hair clips and extensions. Like, ladies, let's leave those things to professionals. Well, not Annie, the professional, but you don't have to put in your own clip-in extensions for Love is Blind. Like, just go with your natural look. That's like the whole point of the show, right? Love is Blind. You should be able to chill out in your freaking jammies the whole time until you meet. Then you have to start, putting on your face and whatnot. But she ends up going the distance with Patrick. They, have their moments where they meet in the middle and they seem to be into each other. Of course, there's like a little bit of awkward energy of naturally you're just meeting this person for the first time. So, of course, there's going to be like, what do you do? How are you? They're always like, are you awkward? Are you nervous? It's like, yeah, this is like really nerve wracking, of course. But she ends up leaving him like a few hours after they meet. And we know she wasn't going to be into Asian dudes. She kind of kept saying, like, I'm so into Asian dudes. My sister dates an Asian guy. Like, she had, like, a lot of, like, Asian influence in her life. And so she was like, oh, well, I'm going to date an Asian guy, too. But she saw him and she was like, yeah, no. And then, like, they had, like, this weird reconciling in, like, the hotel lobby conference area, and they're talking with one another, and it's clear that, like, they're not speaking the same language. And she's basically saying, like, we're done. I'm not going to Mexico with you. And he's like, okay, great. I'll see you in Denver. And she's like, no. And, like, she couldn't just tell him, this is not happening. Like, this is done. We're not going to be moving forward together, because she's a pussy and a pansy. And he's like, oh, she just like doesn't want to go to Mexico. Like, that's totally fine. It's all good. And like, she kept telling him the whole time, oh, it's not about how you look. It's not about how you look. And then they're like 45 minutes earlier. And she's like talking to the producer. And she's like, oh my God, it's like exactly because of how he looks. It's so crazy. I'm like so unattracted to him. He's so ugly. He's a handsome guy. Like, whatever. He's a cute guy. Like, I was fine with him. I was fine with him. But it was so sad. I'm excited to see that play out on the reunion. I'm very excited. I don't think any of these couples will make it. They all seem miserable together. And you know what? It's Wednesday, October 15th at 11:30 a.m. right now. The moment I'm done editing this episode, I'm going to watch the new 3 episodes because I got work to do. The next the episodes that will probably be out will be dress shopping, tux shopping, of course, with a bunch of randoms. And they're definitely going to have a bachelorette, bachelor night. People get too drunk and tipsy, blurred lines, things start happening. We'll have Anton definitely be tempted with some titties. Like, he's going to have to definitely be in a strip club environment so that he can trigger Allie. And you know what? I'm excited for it. I'm so excited to see, again, if one of these couples make it. I don't think so. I mean, can they have a year where there's no weddings? Again, if anybody gets married, it's Nick and Annie, because there's nothing more that brings people together than Christian values predicated on one of the people being gay. Okay, well, on that note, thank you so much for listening to I Know You Didn't Ask. If you guys are still here, I just want to say new episodes will be out Monday. There'll be longer episodes like this one. And then Freaky Friday episodes will be on Fridays. Eventually, I think I'll come out with a Wednesday episode. But for now, we're Mondays and Fridays, baby. I do have to get a job. Oh, how annoying. How freaking annoying. The wedding was my job. And now I need a job. Fuck. It's all good, though. It's all good things. So thank you so much for listening. Be sure to follow me at Megan the Podcaster wherever you go on social media. And yeah, that's all I got to say. Have a great rest of your week, and we'll chat on Friday for the Wendy Osefo deep dive, because that bitch is nuts. Again, I read her thesis about low-income families, and she's gonna be one of them. So she should have a good idea of what her future's looking like. All right. Thanks so much for listening. Bye.